You've seen it, I'm sure. A 2 or 3-year-old child or toddler holding a screen of some sort, utterly glued to the neon and rainbow colors and strange voices on that device that their guardian has handed them. While the adult can now attend to more important things, the child, who's at life's most pivotal developmental window, 0 to 3, is mesmerized by the glow of some atrocity of marketing success. This show or game is great for developing cognitive skills, the marketing team informs the all-too-willing consumer parent. This is a period of life where massive development occurs, a time when synaptic pruning, epigenetics, and social-emotional learning is far beyond our understanding. Works by the 30 Million Words Initiative, 0to3.org, and Johns Hopkins University's Pediatric Integrated Care Collaborative, where I spent several years as a project investigator. These centers and many others are continuing to discover and address pre-birth and early childhood developmental discoveries that we just never have been fully quantified. Gone are the days when kids stayed out until the streetlights turned on, hopping on their BM bikes to race home in time for dinner. Now, we're concerned about the unsavory types in the neighborhood. And rather than get to know our neighbors, to change our community for the better, we find comfort knowing that little Johnny or Janie is accounted for, planted right there in front of the screen where nothing bad could happen to them. They sit there for hours without the risk of being abducted by the incredibly improbable kidnappers that we've allowed to believe are around every corner and in every passing utility van. So instead, they sit and the lights flicker, not in their minds, but from that screen and from the bells and whistles that were designed by the dark side of psychology. Those who've made a career out of designing systems for casinos and video games. The pleasure and reward circuits that have nothing to do with the building of resiliency or in developing an accurate view of the world, but rather a function of careful study of how to keep a subject engaged and addicted to the product. In my role as a psychotherapist and adventure guide, I've walked and talked with thousands of children and teenagers. And it's the children or the parents of these children who surprise me the most, or should I say, bewilder me the most. Do you know the level of complexity that's involved with these games? I've spent 45 minutes trying to find something real to discuss with gamer kids, and I'm pretty good at drawing people out. I know there are all kinds of tools for this, and naturally I utilize them so that I can do my job. But what I'm questioning is, why does this need exist? If I simply ask them about the game that they play, that the 10-year-old plays, she or he can spend 45 minutes taking me through all kinds of strategy situations, connections to other games, and the dynamics of the online interpersonal relationships. But all too often, if I ask anything outside of the virtual world, the kid is stumped, unable to form a sentence, and often reduced to acerbic or barely adequate responses. With this much depth of knowledge over something with absolutely no actual value in life, imagine the level of mastery that your child could have in something that is real, long-term, and socially connected. I'm thinking of Mozart, Bach, Tesla, Musk, Helen Keller. Think of the physical mastery that could be obtained, adventures that could be had, scientific exploration, or truly genius-level knowledge of literature, art, music. Instead, they know all the intricacies of Minecraft or Grand Theft Auto. And they're not children anymore. They don't look at you with the same childlike admiration that they once did. In fact, most parents are now fully invested in that magic number of 18, the year when they'll be out of the house. And you can just get back to your own life. What a tragic thought, raising a child with the clear and spoken hope to see them leave as soon as you can legally kick them out. But if they're gaming as much as you are presently allowing them, I've got news for you. They're probably going to stay a bit longer. No, they won't be staying out of affinity for you or from a desire to help build a family dynasty. They'll be staying for the same reason that you were so happy to see them on the couch rather than out in the neighborhood, scratching their knees, playing ball, or playing in the local park. They're staying because they don't have the tools to make it in this evil world. A world that just doesn't understand how smart and sensitive my kid is. A world that needs you to don your helicopter parent flight suit to attend to every, now adult, inconvenience that your adult child is incapable and frankly unwilling to contend. In these days of corporate-funded research and partisan media, you can find support for any position that one desires to hold. These studies are laughable at best, and if you've spent the time to actually read them, which I have, then you can see probably the same thing as me. You'd have to really want to back up what you really know to be incorrect. Squint one eye and cross your finger behind your back in order to even begin to see these results as answering the question asked. Are video games making us better? That's like agreeing with Big Pharma that exercise, nutrition, and good sleep habits aren't really as important as their next new product launch. You get the trick, right? You've been lied to, either directly or by omission, by the same company that profits from you believing the lie. 8.5 hours on average per week, which is up 14% from the previous year's data. 44% of people play more than 7 hours a week, with 25% playing more than 12 hours per week. A third of gamers play 5 hours in a row, missing showering, eating, socializing in order to play. Half of adults play during work hours. There's an increase in obesity, poor relationships with friends, and sexually explicit content has been rapidly increasing in game design. Internet gaming disorder is one of the most recent terms being fleshed out, but you'll likely be familiar with this very incomplete list of these highly correlated terms and diagnoses: social anxiety, gender dysphoria, ADHD, generalized anxiety disorder, social skill deficits, depression, sleep disruptions, significant decreases in compassion, and increases in desensitization to violence as well as overt aggression. And gaming is a case study in the inappropriate delivery of instant gratification versus the hard-earned skill of building resiliency through adversity. Even without the previous, the loss of development, the disconnect from reality, the inability to function in a world without bells or whistles, the exponential increase of diagnoses and social anxieties. Still, we carry on because it's fun. It's a way to spend time. And it's not hurting anyone, right? In a time when we now have instant access to nearly limitless information online, constant and increasing ability to play games with people from around the world in real time. While many have stated that Westerners have continued to grow in intelligence, something attributable more to the Flynn effect, where intelligence is not necessarily increasing, but rather we're seeing a topping out of environmental and societal factors. We are finding more and more that Western intelligence testing is less useful or accurate, something more akin to the obsolescence effect, where the assessment no longer measures what we believe it measures. In fact, a great many studies have shown what we can readily deduce, that technology is making us far less adaptive, less intelligent, and certainly less in possession of social and emotional intelligence. In short, we're dumber than the generations before us. And for what? What's the value of teaching through gaming? How are we investing in our children's and our own precious and limited time? So, maybe some of this has resonated with you. Maybe I'm not as crazy or as much of a Luddite as you might have initially thought. I'm certainly not anti-tech, and I recognize that making this change is no small feat. So maybe you're willing to take some steps. You might say, what about going from the average of 8.5 hours per week to 4 hours? But what if we put this in equivalent terms? My contention is that video games produce no actual societal benefit. consume an ungodly amount of resources and time, and have a net negative effect on humanity as a whole. So I suppose an analogy would be, how about we make a compromise and say that we'll reduce beating our children from 8 to 4 times per week, or we'll stop destroying half of the homework that our kids diligently completed while staying up late at night to get it just right. How about we'll commit to attending to our newborns for at least half of their first 3 years? Surely, they don't really need us to be that involved in their first 3 years. Who's got time for that? No. I'm saying unplug it now. Have a conversation with your kids, with your spouse first, and come up with a plan. Find other things that you each like and decide to invest in those things. In fact, that's something that I have done with a great many families over the last 20 plus years. We do the hard work of adventure-based parenting, where we focus on living intentionally, revitalizing relationships, motivating active lifestyles, and fostering long-term connections between parents and their families. Find a supportive and active community. Work together with mentors and friends, and pull the plug.